computer. My computer tells me it's recording. Right, hello everybody, good afternoon. Although for some of you it might be good morning as well. Thank you for joining us today. We will probably get some more people join us as we get started, but I don't want to wait too long. So today we are talking about Zambia. We thought it would be a nice opportunity after a webinar that Nick and I did in October, talking about the places lesser known, if you like, but also there is some new and exciting happenings as well, which is what we all get excited about. So we're here today to talk about sort of new and unusual. We've got Vincent here today, and we've got John, and we've got Luke. I'm going to share my presentation because that also shows who our panel are today. So if I do that, then we can immediately start from the beginning. Let me just go back to the beginning. There we go. So here we are today. Thanks so much for joining us. What I would love is if we keep the question and answer session till the end. If you use the Q&A box for those questions, then I can read those out. And depending on who they're relevant for, whether it be me or Nick, or whether it's specific to Vincent, Luke and John, we can deal with those then. We're just talking about Zambia, which I've already said. Your panelists are here. We're going to start with Vincent. He is going to introduce to us, although many of you will have already heard about them, Shawa Luangwa camp, which opened last month. At the beginning of last month, and we've already had guests in, which is very exciting. And Chisa will be opening soon in the Busanga Plains in the Kafue National Park. Then we're going to head over to John, who is going to talk to us about Shoebill Island Camp in the Bangweulu wetlands. And then we will head over to the Lower Zambezi with Luke, who will be talking about Tuscan main camps over there and get going from there into a question and answer session. So to set the scene, I'm just going to play you a Zambia video first, and then I will be handing over to Nick. So here we are, setting the scene. Welcome to Zambia.
Right, thank you, Honor. Now, unfortunately for me, the sound disappeared on that video after a couple of seconds, and a couple of nods of the head and some messages in the chat box would confirm that was probably the case for everyone. So apologies for that. Not a great start to our Zambian webinar, but nonetheless, thank you, Honor, for the introduction, and thank you to all those that have signed on and are with us this afternoon. Some more slightly bad news as well, unfortunately. We're going to start with a couple of slides just to look at the state of affairs in Zambia before I talk about the logistics of flying in and around the country. And we are just literally now starting to experience what they're terming the third wave here in Lusaka and in Zambia in general. And it's been going on for about 10 days or 2 weeks. And the numbers are worryingly heading in the wrong direction. So the numbers that you see on the screen at the moment are updated daily from the government. We put this together a couple of days ago. So roughly 100,000 confirmed cases, and that's in the whole of the pandemic, the last 15 months. The testing, we don't do an awful lot of testing, but there has been a lot more recently with the numbers that we're seeing starting to escalate, and so they are testing more and more people at the moment. And we've had so far about 1,300 deaths in the last 15 months. So our numbers really were very, very low all of last year. There was a little bit of a spike in January this year after Christmas, and that was only very short-lived. And as I say, we are just starting to see a rise in numbers now, which is very concerning for all of us here in the country, and obviously for anyone that is planning to visit. But we'll just have to monitor that very closely and keep on top of all the numbers. So hospitalized cases at the moment, you can see down there is about 300 people in hospital in the country. And just to put all of that in perspective, we've got a population of about 18 million here in Zambia. So that kind of puts those figures a little bit into perspective. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll just talk a little bit about testing in Zambia. When your clients are traveling in Zambia, they are invariably going to have a COVID test whilst they're in country before they leave, in order to board the plane that's going to take them home or to enter the country that they originate from. So we've done a lot of work on that subject in the last few months, and it is now possible to get your clients tested wherever they are in Zambia, whether that's in the national parks or in Livingstone. The easiest way is Lusaka, and some people are choosing to spend an extra night in their itinerary back in Lusaka in order to get the test done. We can turn around tests in about 24 hours. We can do same day as well if we get people in early enough and they're leaving late in the evening. But we work all that out on a case-by-case and itinerary-by-itinerary basis. But just to say that we've got all that covered on your behalf in terms of getting your clients tested before they leave the country. So this slide explains to you a little bit about the entry requirements for Zambia, and I must preempt this slide by saying that we're really in a state of flux at the moment. The government issued some new regulations a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, and as an industry here in Zambia, we've been working very hard to try and get some clarification from the government. So what is out there that has been written by the government isn't necessarily what in extent what is going on the ground. Certainly, it is true to say that everyone entering Zambia must have a PCR test, a negative test that was taken no more than 72 hours before they'd started their journey to Zambia. We've got a list of high-risk countries, which we'll come on to on the next slide. There's 15 countries on that list at the moment. And passengers originating and having spent more than 3 days in one of those high-risk countries would then need to have a PCR test on arrival in Zambia. And what is happening at the moment is that if you've been fully vaccinated and you can prove that, you wouldn't have to be tested. If you haven't been vaccinated and you've spent more than 3 days in a high-risk country, you would be tested and then allowed to proceed. And this is where there's a lot of uncertainty, and we're trying to get the government to clarify whether or not you need to quarantine until the result of that PCR test is returned negative. What's happening? That's happening in Livingstone. What's happening in Lusaka is you're allowed to go on your way, and you're not even contacted if your result is negative. You're contacted if it is positive. So we are working very hard on a daily basis to try and get clarification from the government. As soon as we get some more clarification on these points, then certainly as Zambian groundhandlers, we will be disseminating that information around the industry, because obviously it's vital to know what the requirements are for when your clients arrive in Zambia. So we'll stay on top of it this side, and we'll try and keep you posted as best we can. This is the list of high-risk countries as it stands at the moment. However, a couple of days ago, I got sight of a revised list, which interestingly and happily removed the African countries. So it takes off South Africa, Kenya, and Ethiopia, which are the big transit countries for people routing to Zambia. So the new list, we expect to exclude those 3 countries, but it does add, potentially add a couple of new countries, Belgium being one in Europe. But that new list has not been released yet. So at the moment, this list of countries in front of you now is what we have to take as our list of high-risk countries. So moving on from that, I just want to have a quick discussion about how you get in and out of Zambia at the moment, and also the domestic routes around Zambia, and then I'll pass on the more interesting stuff with the camps. and we can come back to any of these subjects in the question and answer session at the end of the afternoon. So we've got flights daily in from Dubai. Ethiopian has been flying throughout the pandemic. Ethiopian has continued flying, which has been a great service. Also from Nairobi, Kenyan Airways are flying in. And there are flights with ProFlight and with Airlink to Johannesburg. Livingston is planned from Joburg to Livingston with ProFlight and also Airlink, but those flights haven't yet started. And until South Africa is removed from our list of high-risk countries, I don't believe those routes will be operational. So hopefully that'll come fairly soon. Domestically, ProFlight is still continuing to keep up a great domestic service for us. Some of the routes in and out of the Lower Zambezi, the longer routes from and to the Luangwa and to Livingston from the Lower Zambezi are dependent on minimum numbers booking. If you're booked on one of those flights and there aren't enough people to warrant ProFlight running it, they would still carry those passengers to their destination on the correct day at the same price, but they would route them via Lusaka. And so that's happening in a couple of instances. So I think that is about all I've got on the sort of generic information about Zambia, but I'm sure we'll come back to a lot of that in the Q&A session at the end. So I'm going to pass on now to Vincent, who's going to take you to the Kafue and to the South Luangwa. Vincent, you're on.
I'm unmuted, but Honor, could you put on the next slide, probably? Okay, Shawa Luangwa Camp. Thanks, guys. Lovely to see so many people attending. Shawa Luangwa Camp, our newest addition to a portfolio of by now 7 camps across Zambia and Malawi. We opened May 1, and a little bit adding to the previous topic, I'm actually surprised to see that ever since we've been almost fully booked. There's a real keen interest in this new camp and some of our other properties, whilst we were expecting a very conservative recovery rate. What I do see looking at reservations is especially the Americans are ready to travel again, and we seem to attract quite a few of those in Shawa Luangwa Camp. It's a 10-bedded camp set along the Luangwa River, which operates its own pontoon into a very tranquil part of South Luangwa National Park. It's about a 4 or 5 minute boat crossing for the game drives in the park. And what is really nice is that we also have a direct entrance road into the Ensefu sector, which is basically a game drive of about 30 minutes, which gets you into that sector. I think some of the key aspects of the camp are maybe number one, having Jacob Shawa as our head guide. Previously number 8 Wanderlust guides. We developed the camp in cooperation with him. With so many years of experience in South Luangwa, we take great pride in having him as our head guide. I don't know if you have a picture of the tents there, Honor, but that might be nice to show. Might be the next one. Yeah. What we really like there, we've built 5 platforms with tents that open up 270 degrees during the day with a free view on both the river and the pristine surroundings where the camp is located. And people really appreciate that this image shows the shade nets down, but basically during the day, you sit on a safe platform with great views on all the action in front of you on the riverside. All tents have indoor baths and outdoor showers. I guess what is very key to Shawa Luangwa camp, in sync with our Green Safaris philosophy, being extremely eco-friendly, we operate electric game drive vehicles for silent safaris in both South Luangwa National Park and the Nsefu sector. And looking at the reviews of the current guests, for all of them, having that silent safari is a completely new experience. After we've tested this for years in the Kafue at Ila Safari Lodge, it is great to see how hugely appreciated that silent safari is. You simply encounter more game because they don't hear you coming. They're less skittish, and well, you know, that's the reason why we started this years ago. Silent safaris, you actually hear the sound of the bush and the birds with no roaring diesel engine. Maybe, Honor, if you could go back to the main slide for 1 second, that with the highlights. E-cruisers, yeah, what is quite important, flying into Mafui, as most guests will do, it's about a 45-50 minutes transfer, where what I personally appreciate very much, you turn off just before the hustle and bustle of Mafui town, with a lovely scenic driveway into camp. Yeah, I guess, Honor, that covers sort of the key aspects of the camp, and what I must say, probably interesting to all agents, despite all the hurdles to be taken to start traveling again. And we at Green Safaris taking a very conservative look on the expectations of 2021. We are pleasantly surprised by the number of diehard safari people who are now actually booking and booking, amongst others, this brand new camp in South Luangwa. Maybe continue to Chisa, announced a long time ago, and we started building probably 2 years ago, but then because of COVID, sort of postponed it a little bit during last year, but we are ready to fly. 4 of these birds' nests situated in a beautiful piece of the famous Busanga plains. What I really like about, well, apart from the architecture of the bird's nest, is that on the back of the bird's nest you see the Coppinger forest, and for years a very big herd of elephants have been residing in that forest. And you know, the true magic of Busanga plains is obviously every morning the sunrise, where those elephants come out of the Coppinger forest and march in front of those birds' nests onto the plains, where there's a natural watering hole just in front of those nests, which is an amazing sight. Do you have a picture of the interior of the bird's nest? But yeah, because quite often people see that shape and that architectural design and wonder, yeah, okay, but how's the inside? It's, as people are used with Green Safaris, quite a spacious, neat and luxurious interior with an indoor-outdoor shower, a balcony, and this is the view on the Busanga plains with the watering hole in front of us. Game numbers have been impressively on the rise over the past couple of years. We supported a private anti-poaching unit during the rainy season. And the latest that I've been told is that the number of lions, for example, in the vicinity has risen from about 12, 14 to 37 over the last rainy season. So it's really, really improving there. In terms of activities, again, silent safaris, so electric game drive vehicles. As with all of our new camps, we built these quite massive solar plants to power our cars. New, obviously, walking safaris both in South Luangwa and on the plains, but new to Busanga Plains is the offering of e-mountain bike tours, which will be quite spectacular and very good to do on the plains, being flat and always providing a good view on what's around you or what's coming. In terms of, well, the tents, it's for 2-pax tents. One of the tents, they're quite high. They're about 4 meters above the ground. So you walk through stairs up into your lovely little bird's nest, but one of them has an elevator to accommodate elderly people or handicapped people. It is a hour flight from Lusaka, or a 20-minute flight from Chunga airstrip, which we emphasize because quite often people will book Chisa either in combination with Ila, Safari Lodge further down and closer to Chunga airstrip, and we prefer to fly people from Ila straight into the Busanga Plains, or straight from Lusaka in a 1-hour flight. Yeah, I guess I'm very excited. Great team well, has started to prepare the opening about a week from now. Again, just like with Shawa, really pleasantly surprised about the number of bookings that are actually showing in our system already. I think, Honor, that is what I can share at this stage. Yeah, this gives a better impression of the interior. Thanks. Handing it over to John, I guess. Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks very much, Honor. And we are very grateful for this opportunity to speak a little bit about our new venture in the Bangweulu swamps. So Remote Africa, Carol and I have been in the Luangwa since '84, so I think that's 37 years if I've got my math correct. And we started our own company in '95, and not long after that, probably in about 2000, from about 2000, we started running safaris to mostly day trips up to the Bangweulu swamps. The combination of the Luangwa and the Bangweulu swamps has always been a huge attraction to me. It's just so different to the valley, such a different landscape, and of course you see different wildlife. So that has continued, and we got to know all the African Parks team in the more recent years. And in 2008, they took over the management of the area with a private-public partnership with the National Parks Department and the local community. In fact, the area is huge. They got an area of 6,000 square kilometers, and so they have 6 chieftains, and all those chieftains have somebody represented on the board. I think most of you will be familiar with African Parks. They're a very successful and very effective conservation NGO, and they've done fantastic work all over Africa. And so they invited us, after we got to know them, to manage Shoebill fairly recently, and to which we gladly agreed. And in 2019, I think it was the end of 2019, we signed that management contract. Of course, that was brilliant timing, because it led us straight into this little pandemic that we're experiencing. So to be honest, it hasn't really materialized in terms of us taking over management. The bookings are so few and far between, and for us to get management teams and to get our supplies in there for so few people, they are still effectively managing the camp, although we handle the bookings, and they manage the bookings for now until things improve. Thanks, Donna. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So what you can see on the map there is the Lake Bangweulu, and included in that are the swamps, which are to the east of Lake Bangweulu. It's a vast, vast area. In fact, I think it's just under 10,000 square k's, the swamp area. And of that, 6,000 k's is managed by African Parks. So it is huge, and declared by Ramsar as one of the most important wetlands on the globe. Thanks, Anna. Let's go up to the next one. Oh, yeah, we've got a video. Okay, I think we've missed out on the sound there. So, as the name suggests, the big attraction up in the Bangweulu is the shoebill, which is a most remarkable prehistoric bird. They're just over a meter tall, and the Bangweulu is one of the strongholds of these birds in Africa and the southernmost area of their range. They require the swamps and all those reeds. What are they called again? I had a bit of a brain fade there on the type of reeds, which are required also for Sitatunga, which are also found there. So that camp that was taken over originally from the Kasanka Trust was refurbished and reopened by African Parks in 2018, of course, upgraded hugely at that time. And it's a very comfortable camp, 4 tents with all solar powered and with 8 people, 2 in each tent. And I think there are 2 doubles and then 2 twins. So the shoebill breed there, and this is the time of year from the May to October, so which coincides perfectly with our dry season. And apart from the shoebill, there are a lot of other very interesting things. I mean, the bird life is quite phenomenal. Over 400 bird species, including the cranes, wattled cranes. I think 10% of the world's wattled cranes, yeah, there it is right there, are found in the Bangweulu, and they are very prolific, of course. But for me, another really impressive thing of the black lechwe. The black lechwe number over 50,000 now, I believe. And it's interesting to have seen the numbers change over the years. In the 1930s, there were 150,000 estimated. I guess it was a bit difficult to count them in those days. But since then, they got completely almost wiped out in the later years, in the war years, due to being harvested for meat. And I think by 1954, they'd reduced to about 15,000. And now they've rebounded with the protection of provided by African Parks and DNPW back to over 50,000, which is really encouraging. Apart from that, there are some other very interesting mammals, Sesabe, which of course we don't see here in the valley, which are found in the woodlands. There are woodlands. I mean, it's largely floodplain, which gets inundated during the rains. And but there are woodlands in the Mandamata, and Sesabe are very commonly seen from about August. They've introduced a few very interesting species, which is very exciting. Cheetah have been reintroduced. 8 of them, I think it is, and we really look forward to those proliferating after 100 years of absence. There used to be a great number of apparently vast herds of buffalo in the swamps, and they have reduced dramatically over the years, but African Parks have relocated another just under 100, I think it was a couple of years ago. And interestingly, they refused to integrate with the original buffalo that still remain there. But the most impressive thing is the black lechwe, and it's one of my most favorite things, is flying into the swamps and seeing all these hundreds and thousands of black lechwe across the plains. It really is a stunning view. But the shoebill, of course, is the big attraction, and for any bird watcher, that is the big draw card. They're often referred to as storks, but in fact, they're more closely related to herons and pelicans. You can see the hooked bill and the crest, which are common in the other species. As I said, a meter tall, which is remarkable, and this is their breeding season, so it becomes a lot easier to see them, to find their nests, and to find the chicks too. So you can get a really good close-up view. But having said that, it's always a bit of an expedition to get to see the shoebill. It's can be quite tough going, particularly later in the dry season. At the moment, there's a lot of water about, and you can access them in the dugouts and the canoes. Later on, if you really need to see them, you very often have to wade through the swamps, which can be a bit challenging, but very rewarding. So it's a lovely, well-appointed camp that African Parks have built, overlooking that's permanent water there that you see, and every night, every early morning, black lechwe will run through the water, and you can hear them throughout the night. It's a lovely sound. There are 4 tents, which I think I mentioned, and all very well appointed, fairly simple, fairly functional, but very comfortable. That's a double, obviously, and there are 2 twins as well as that. Right, thanks, Honor. I'll be here for questions and answers.
Thank you, John. Sorry about it. Nick's just told me that if I unmute myself, you can hear the sound. So I didn't realize I was trying to be polite. So if I can always play the videos again at the end. Sorry about that. My bad. But thank you, John. And over to you, Luke.
Okay, thanks, Honor, and thank you, Nick, as well, for the invitation to take part. Yeah, so a little bit about myself and Kyle, maybe to begin with. So I was born and grew up in Zambia in the Luangwa National Park in Mfuri. And my parents also worked in the Kafue National Park and later the Lower Zambezi National Park with Sausage Tree Camp, where I fell in love with the Lower Zambezi area and set my heart one day on doing something of my own. So in 2018, we opened Tuscan Maine Safaris. And yeah, so Tuscan Maine Safaris for me, and what we're trying to achieve with it is to really do the Lower Zambezi National Park as much justice as possible in terms of offering the best locations to do what the Lower Zambezi offers. And it's one of the few national parks in Southern Africa, particularly, that offers such a huge variety of activities, and all of these from your doorstep. So we wanted to try and find locations that would really apply to those niche activities. So somewhere that's really good to go walking, somewhere that's really good to go canoeing. And we looked at the old canoeing sites, or B sites as they were called. And one of these included a Chula camp, which is the only camp inside the Lower Zambezi National Park on an island. So Chula has no vehicle access at all. We operate similar to colleagues in the South Luangwa. If people would like to go on a game drive, we boat across to the other side where the vehicles are waiting and do our game drives there. But Chula, the island itself, it's almost got a Jurassic Park-like feel to it. There's permanent water lagoons on it. At its widest point, it's about 3 kilometers wide, and it's about 9 kilometers long. It's got well-established vegetation on it, similar to the main floodplains behind us. And it's also very well populated with wildlife. In fact, the game viewing on the island itself is excellent. So we really wanted to offer an experience that is outside of the tent. And this has a lot to do with how Kyle and I grew up, how we've worked, and how we have seen the safari industry develop. We wanted to go back to the sort of camps that we grew up around, and asked ourselves a simple question: what do people really want when they're coming out to the bush? And I think the main thing that's happening here is the wildlife experience itself. So how you immerse yourself in this environment. And we deliberately wanted our camp to play second fiddle to that. So to complement it, but not to steal the show. And this is why we've kept things as simple as possible. Our camp, our tents, Anna, maybe if you can flick through to tent. Oops.
That one okay?
Yeah, that one's okay. Yeah, that's cool. So the tents, we decided there's such a lot of activity on the valley floor in the Lower Zambezi, and it doesn't matter which camp you're at, our camps or other camps. We wanted really the tent experience to be a game viewing experience as well. And we felt that the best way to do that was to keep it open. You can see those darker black flaps. So we close up in the evening, depending on how clients want to do that. You can close up the whole tent completely, front and sides, or you can put it up 3/4 or halfway up. And we just discuss that with clients once they're in camp, how they prefer to have it. But we very often have herds of buffalo and elephant, hippos, impala, waterbuck coming through in front. And this is something that we didn't want clients to miss out of. So our tents are very open at the front. They are strategically positioned so that you cannot see your neighboring tents. So they are still private. But yeah, this was to go back to what I said earlier, that for us, it's just very important to let the environment outside do most of the talking, and for us to guide you as professionally as we can through it, but for the tent or the camp itself not to be all too important about what it actually is. If you can go back, yeah, then maybe the canoeing. Yeah, so.
Which this one, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, that one, yeah. So for me, that's a quintessential Lower Zambezi scene. You have your winter thorn trees, your elephants, and it doesn't matter what side of the river you're on. If you're in Zimbabwe or Zambia, that's one of the marked features that stays in people's memories. And to be able to enjoy this environment with a canoe in a vehicle, or sitting in a hide, or on a walking safari, it's landscape-wise and scenically one of the most beautiful parks, in my opinion. And we again wanted to just make sure we focused on that. So we do a lot of canoeing. This is the what's known as the Discovery Channel. So it's about 11 kilometers long, and it's what separates Shoebill Island from the mainland. And yeah, just perfect canoeing that, and a perfect canoeing channel. So we have Kutali Camp as well. That's about 8 kilometers downstream from Chula, and Kutali is nestled in a winterthorn forest like that. It's almost, I often refer to it a bit like the Blair Witch Project. You don't see many other species of trees. And this contrast really works well with the sandy location of Chula Island with its trichelia trees. So we wanted to try and get the trade, so to speak, or the agents to give us a 4 nights stay, which I think is justified in the Lower Zambezi if you consider the variety of activities that are on offer and the pace at which you want to do those activities. And that's at an African pace. It's not at a Western tick the box as fast as you can pace. So the 2 nights we'd start at Kutali camp, which we focus mainly on game drives, a little bit of canoeing and walking amongst the winterthorn forests. And then we move on to Chula, the island camp, where we try to put the emphasis on the river activities with more canoeing and boating and fly fishing if people are keen to do that on a strictly catch and release basis. We're a small camp, so we only have 10 beds, which we move between both sites. Kyle, my partner, is heavily involved in the national curriculum guide training operated with Bedrock Africa. So he writes and examines the canoeing and walking exams, and that gives us a big, it's just part of who we are. So it's the guiding and getting outside the tent and spending as much time in the bush as possible. The Lower Zambezi is, these are one of the our bush lunches, and quite a lovely experience if you've ever done it, is to be able to spend lunch with your feet in the water like this after a good day's game viewing, and on a shallow sandbank. And just the Zambezi River comes up with so many different options, whether you're canoeing on it, boating, or having lunch on it. It's a beautiful spot. So this is a good picture of Kutali to give you a contrast to Chula, where the tent was earlier. So this is in the middle of this winterthorn forest, and it's literally like that for 3 kilometers in each direction. You won't see many other different species of trees, and I love this site. It's personally my favorite site. We have a lot of buffalo in this camp. They'll come through early in the morning, and there's nothing quite like watching them with a coffee in your bed. The combination is what makes it. So that's why we chose these locations. So I think I'm pretty much done there. So I don't know, Anna, I think you're next.
No, thank you very much to all of you. It's nice to see the pictures, and hopefully we can all get back out there soon. Nick, I believe you've been keeping an eye on the chat box, so we will just head over into the question and answer session now. What I'll do is I'll stop sharing, and then we can see all our speakers, but I'll start off with some questions here. The first one's for Vincent. Are Chisa Busanga guests able to join a balloon safari? Can you tell us a bit more about that? You're on mute. Vincent, you're on mute. Sorry.
Thanks, Honor, and thanks, Marco, for the question. As far as I'm aware, they won't be present during this season. Can't put my hand in the fire if they will next year, but let's assume, and then in principle, as it has always been, it's always open to whoever stays on the Busanga Plains.
Thank you, Vincent. Then we've got one for John, please. What is the ideal season to visit Bangweulu with the best chance to see the shoebill stalk? Aren't there times when the swamps are also rather dry?
Yes, they are rather dry towards the end of the dry season. So May, June, July are probably the best months, I would say, and particularly June, July. May can be very wet still, as it is this year. This year they had huge rain, and So it's on the one hand very, very good because you can get around on the canoes and makoros for a lot more easily. But the shoebill start breeding in May. So May through to October is a good time. And in May, they probably still haven't, they would have laid their eggs, but the chicks would only hatch around about June. So June, July, I would say is probably the best time to see shoebill. But you can, particularly if you're prepared to work a little bit harder. I've seen a lot of shoebill in September, but that usually entails a bit of a slog through the swamps on foot. You know, sometimes people are not so keen on that, but actually and I've taken a number of people into the swamps to do that. I mean, and when people are so desperate to see a shoebill, that's actually a very rewarding way to do it. And so, yeah, I think anytime during the dry season, which is when we operate shoebill's closed during the rainy season because there's just too much water. Even now, they're unable to, you know, we're unable to get to the camp by vehicle or on foot. We have to canoe, which is also rather nice. But yeah, the dry season does get a little bit dusty and a little bit hard going, but you can still see shoebill. But I would still say I'd say July is probably June, July best months to see them. And you know, because the African parks, in order partially to protect the shoebill, have nest guides, and these guides or nest protectors, and they keep an eye on them because they have been known to, you know, for the wildlife trade, they're quite attractive. And sometimes fishermen attack them because they're competing with them for fish. So those guys generally know where the nests are. So it makes it a lot easier to pick them up.
Brilliant. And as I've just been reminded, shoebill, and as you said, John, shoebills aren't storks, they're closer to herons.
That's correct. Yeah, herons and pelicans. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They're often referred to as storks, but that's the fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reminded, and you had said that. So, and how many nights would you recommend at shoebill? Would 3 nights be the norm? That's from Sally.
Yeah, two to three nights we would recommend. Yeah, and it depends on the other part of your itinerary. You know, we recommend it as a circuit, what we call the Northern Circuit. So we've got our camps in South Luangwa. It makes a really nice combination. And what I didn't mention earlier in my presentation was our access means is with our aircraft. And that in itself, just getting up there is a really lovely experience. You know, flying from the valley floor, which is just over 500 meters above sea level, going across the valley, up the escarpment, fantastic views of the escarpment, going over the watershed, which is Great North Road, and then into the swamps. And of course, the swamps is on the Congo watershed. So very, very different terrain. Yeah.
And how long would that flight take, roughly?
We take about an hour. You could probably do it in 15 minutes, but we always, when we go in there, we'll always do a bit of an overfly over the swamps and sometimes see shoebill, and obviously the lechwe are particularly spectacular from there. So we always allow an hour.
Thank you. Isabel did ask, is there a road option?
Self-drives can go to the swamps. We don't get involved in self-drives. It's a long way to go and quite a difficult road. So no, not with us.
Thank you, John. Over to you, Luke. What is happening with the proposed Tafara Springs site?
Yeah, thank you, Honor and Dawn. I see I got blinded in the headlights a bit with this esteemed panel here, and I missed quite a few critical information points. Yeah, Tafara, we've simply put the building of the bush camp there on hold given the current COVID situation. We are operating it as a sleep out, so just proper camping. We'll go up there with a couple of tents and a guide, and yeah, just camp out there and see what's happening. I wouldn't recommend it for more than 1 or 2 nights. It's still very off the beaten track area there. The game is quite skittish still, and yeah, it works excellently in combination with the river experience and gives you the best of the lower Zambezi to be able to get up into the hills. Kyle has been up there about a week ago putting up roads, and he's seen quite a few leopard and one pride of lion. So it's all very exciting up there. But no, we haven't built the camp yet.
And just for Isabel as well, she said, is the closest, the airstrip is Jackie, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's, again, another critical point I missed is Tuscamane is Jackie. So it's about a 45-minute game drive transfer to Kutali camp. And it's about a 15 to 20 minute boat game drive to Chula. So Chula is actually very close to Jackie. As a crow flies, it's probably only about 10 minutes straight.
Okay. And from Steve, for you, Luke, as well, with just 10 beds in Tuscamane between the camps, are there fixed departures and fixed lengths of stay?
Yeah, it's a very good question there. I know the trade hates the old fixed departure and that, so it's not. We offer the 4 nights and split them 2 and 2. If people are staying 3 nights, we'd usually ask at the time of inquiry how you'd prefer to do it and make our own recommendations. But usually it's a pain to spend 1 night in one camp and then move on. So we tend to say if it's 3 nights, pick one camp. If it's 2 nights, it'll be one camp anyway. And if it's 4 nights, we'll move you between. This works really easily because it's very close to Jackie. The transfer possibilities are really easy. And when normal flights are working, it's even easier. We can easily send a vehicle to pick people up and drop them off. And there is a separate team of staff at each camp, but the guests and the guides move between camps. I also we're still small enough, I handle all of the reservations myself, so it's quite easy to get it all. If I know what you're looking for and what your clients are looking for, then I can advise you at the time of inquiry what I think would work best.
Thank you, Luke. A couple of questions for Vincent. You mentioned the flying from Ila to Chisa, but what would the drive be like? How long would it take? And how does it really differ, the different areas along the way?
Well, as you probably all know, the Kafue is the biggest park in Zambia, and the landscape varies in overall the sectors of the park. We basically offer 2 variants. Either it's a 20-minute flight or it's about a 5 to 6 hour all-day game drive from Ila Safari Lodge into Chisa Busanga camp.
And what's the drive like?
Yeah, as said, it's about 150 kilometer distance into very different areas of the Kafue National Park. A varied different game along the way. Roads, that main loop across the park being redone now that African Parks is present in the park, so that's really helpful. It's a pretty amazing game drive or a 20-minute flight. Okay.
Thank you. And John, one for you again. Again from Marco. Is the flight route always the South Luangwa, Bangweulu, South Luangwa, or have you also got a triangular option with Lusaka?
No, we can do it from Lusaka. It's obviously just a lot more expensive. So we find most of our clients will combine Luangwa. They don't have to, of course, but it's obviously a lot more cost-effective to come to Fui on ProFlight on the scheduled, and then do your chartering from there. We also fly from North Luangwa, of course.
Okay, thank you. I am just trying to check and see if there are any other questions. Just roughly, how much would the cost of that flight be, John, roughly?
You've got me there, Anna. I can just defer this to Jen. Maybe Jen, do you know what from here to?
It's okay.
Shoebill?
We're also in the follow-up. In the follow-up, I will certainly be sending out some information on the green safaris and the flights there, and I can pop everyone in touch with Jen as for any other questions as well. Absolutely, and same for Luke.
Yep.
No
Okay.
problem.
She has rushed off to get the price, but I'm sure it can be dealt with later.
That's okay. I'm just quickly having a look through the chat box because there are no more in the Q&A. I think we've pretty much covered quite a lot of the questions. Is there anything else that any of you would like to add before we sign off? I will be following up. I will be sending some links through. I'll be sending the links for Zambian ground handlers and green safaris, and then I'll put you in touch with Luke and John and Jen for any other things. We've got 2 more questions that have popped in the meantime. How are the books for 2023? Are they booked solid? I guess this is for everybody. Are you already starting to get inquiries, Nick, for 2023?
Yeah, we do have a few in the system for 2023, but obviously plenty of space, so don't worry about that if you need to book that far in advance. A lot of this year is understandably being shifted into 2022. So there are already occasionally in the smaller camps in the peak season some availability problems for next year, but 2023 could be described as being wide open.
Does anyone else want to add to that? Okay. Right. Well, in that case, I think I've pretty much covered all questions. Sorry, they also come in on WhatsApp as well. So it's all just, they're coming in everywhere. That's it. We've got one apology who thought it was an hour later. But in principle, thank you very much to my panelists. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick, Vincent, Luke, and John. And thank you everybody else for joining us. I will send out a recording of today, and I'm sorry about the sound. I didn't realize if I mute myself, it's not possible. But other than that, thanks so much for your time. We're getting a couple more messages just saying thank you very much. One last one for Luke. At your camps with the open sides, what are the chances of waking up or encountering big cats wandering outside your tent netting? I know for a fact that is very possible. You're on mute, Luke.
Yes, that I was trying to figure out how to answer that, James, but in the chat I couldn't. But thanks, Anna, for catching it. It is quite common, particularly lion we've had come through, and yeah, it's an amazing experience if you are awake and you do see it, and even just to see the footprints afterwards if you have missed the real thing, which is quite commonly the case. We do have small 2-way radios in each tent, and they're manned 24 hours, and you can speak to us at any time, and we have a very intense safety briefing. But a once in a lifetime experience if you do wake up like that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody. A lovely message saying great presentation from one and all. Thank you. A lovely reminder of what a wonderful destination Zambia is, and hopefully more people will be able to travel there soon, including myself. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Honor.
Thanks very much, Anna.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.